Right now, somewhere in the world, someone is sitting down to breakfast. Someone else is finishing lunch. And somewhere else, dinner is already on the table. We do this every single day without ever asking why. 3 meals, same rhythm, same routine. It feels like biology, like a rule written into our bodies. It isn't. No doctor invented it. No scientist discovered it. There's no gene that says eat at 8, 12, and 6. What you're about to hear is stranger than that. 3 meals a day is a habit the world talked itself into 1 century at a time. And once you know the real story, you'll never look at your dinner plate the same way again. The first humans didn't have meals at all. Let's rewind. Not a few centuries, over 20,000 years. On the edge of the Sea of Galilee, in what's now Israel, sits a site called Ohelo II. Archaeologists digging there found the remains of small huts, each built around a fire pit. Scattered around those fires, seeds and nuts from more than 140 different plants, along with bones from fish, birds, and small animals. These were hunter-gatherers. And here's the part that matters. They didn't eat on a schedule. They ate when there was food. Some days brought a feast. Other days brought nothing at all. The idea of lunchtime would have meant absolutely nothing to them. Eating wasn't a routine back then. It was a reward, the payoff of a good hunt or a lucky morning of foraging. There was no 3-meal system because there was no guarantee. And that stayed true for most of human history. The first shift, farming. Then, around 12,000 years ago, everything changed. Agriculture took root in the region we now call the Fertile Crescent, parts of modern Iraq, Iran, and Turkey. For the first time, food didn't have to be chased. It could be grown, stored, and counted on. People stopped wandering and started settling. Villages formed. Cooking became more advanced. Meals became something shared, not just survived. But even now, there is no fixed 3 meals a day. What people ate, and when, still depended completely on where they lived and what the sun was doing. Take ancient Egypt. Most people ate twice. A light meal in the morning, usually bread and beer, and a heavier one at night with vegetables, lentils, and whatever protein they could get. 2 meals, not 3. The Greeks came a little closer to what we'd recognize. A small morning bite, a midday meal, and a bigger evening gathering. But these weren't fixed appointments. People ate what they could when they could. Quick pause. If you're enjoying learning where our everyday habits actually come from, hit subscribe. I break down the hidden history behind things we never question. Okay, back to it. The Romans hated eating more than once. Now here's a twist you probably didn't expect. The Romans, one of the most organized civilizations in history, were almost the opposite of what you'd guess. They were suspicious of eating more than once a day. Genuinely suspicious. Historians note that many Romans linked frequent eating with gluttony and poor self-control. Their main meal, called cena, was eaten around midday. There was a small morning snack, but it barely counted as a real meal in their eyes. 1 meal a day? That was considered the disciplined, respectable way to live. And this mindset shaped European eating habits for centuries afterward, civilizing the Americas. Fast forward to European colonization of the Americas, and we get one of the more uncomfortable turns in this story. When European settlers encountered indigenous communities, they were struck by how differently people ate. Meals weren't fixed. Food intake shifted with the seasons. People fasted when food was scarce and ate more when it wasn't. It was flexible, adaptive, and deeply practical. The settlers didn't see it that way. They labeled it disorganized, even uncivilized. And that judgment, more cultural bias than science, helped justify pushing a rigid, European-style eating schedule across the continent. A schedule that would eventually become the 3-meal standard we now think of as normal. The Navy locks it in. So where did the actual 3-meal structure come from? Follow the trail to 16th century Europe, where the world was starting to organize itself around clocks instead of the sun. The British Royal Navy was one of the first major institutions to formalize 3 set meals a day. Sailors got a simple breakfast, hard biscuits and salted meat, a midday meal that served as the main event, and a lighter dinner at night. This wasn't about health or tradition. It was logistics. Sailors doing brutal physical labor needed fuel at predictable times, and a ship needed predictable routines to function. 3 meals wasn't a discovery about the human body. It was a scheduling tool. The Industrial Revolution makes it permanent. But the moment that truly locked 3 meals into everyday life for millions of people came later, with the Industrial Revolution. Starting in Britain in the mid-1700s and spreading across Europe and North America, this shift changed something deeper than machinery. It changed how people related to time itself. For the first time in history, huge numbers of people weren't working loose, sunrise to sunset farm hours. They were clocking into factories with rigid shifts and a single break in the middle of the day. Breakfast before the shift, lunch during the one break, dinner after clocking out. It mapped perfectly onto factory life, not because it was biologically ideal, but because it fit the machine schedule society had just built for itself. 3 meals a day wasn't a discovery. It was a workaround. Breakfast becomes sacred. As cities grew and farm life faded into memory, the morning meal took on new importance. The word breakfast literally means breaking the fast from the night before. For a long time in medieval Christian Europe, eating before morning mass was actually discouraged, so breakfast as a real meal was slow to become normal. But skipping food before a 12-hour factory shift wasn't a spiritual choice anymore. It was a fast track to exhaustion. Breakfast stopped being optional and became essential. Dinner shifted too. Before industrialization, the biggest meal of the day was eaten at midday, when the sun was highest and light was free. But once artificial lighting let factories run late into the evening, the main meal drifted later, and by the mid-1800s, an after-work dinner had become the anchor of the day across Europe and the US. The cereal man closes the loop. Then, in the early 1900s, one more piece fell into place, and it came from someone you wouldn't expect. John Harvey Kellogg, the inventor of cornflakes, helped cement breakfast as a non-negotiable daily ritual. Through aggressive advertising in the 1920s and 30s, the phrase "the most important meal of the day" spread everywhere. It wasn't pure science speaking. It was marketing. Cereal companies needed millions of people eating breakfast every single morning to survive as businesses, and it worked spectacularly well. By this point, 3 meals a day wasn't just common. It was cultural law. But does your body actually want this? Here's the real question, though. Does your biology actually care about 3 meals a day? Sort of, but not in the way you'd think. Your body runs on a circadian rhythm, an internal 24-hour clock. Research on meal timing shows it directly affects blood sugar, insulin sensitivity, metabolism, and even how your fat cells behave. In the morning, cortisol rises and your body becomes remarkably good at processing food. Insulin sensitivity is near its peak, so carbs are more likely to become usable energy instead of stored fat. Eat that exact same meal late at night, and the outcome changes. Blood sugar spikes higher, sleep quality drops, and more of it tends to get stored as fat. Even your hunger hormones follow this rhythm. Your body starts preparing for meals before you take a single bite, a process scientists call food anticipation. Your biology isn't passive. It learns your patterns and adjusts around them. And that reveals something important. It's not really about the number of meals. 2, 3, or even 4 can all work fine, as long as most of your eating happens during daylight hours, when your body is actually built to handle it. The part biology can't explain, but there's something history explains that biology never could. For more than 20,000 years, humans haven't gathered around food just to survive. We've gathered around it to connect. Long before factories or cereal commercials existed, shared meals were how communities built trust and signaled safety to one another. Research in social psychology consistently finds that people who eat regularly with others report greater happiness and a stronger sense of belonging. So whatever its messy, accidental origins, 3 meals a day gives us 3 built-in chances every single day to do something deeply human: sit down and connect. So why do we really eat 3 meals a day? Because sailors needed a schedule. Because factory workers needed predictable breaks. Because medieval Christians couldn't eat before Mass. Because a cereal company needed you to buy breakfast. And because, underneath all of it, human biology happened to align well enough with the routine that it stuck. 3 meals a day was never a law of nature. It was built, piece by piece, century by century, by religion, factories, marketing, and habit. Tonight, you'll probably sit down for dinner anyway, just like billions of people before you. But now, you'll know exactly why.